I'm trucking on, and I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line, another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on, I'm trucking on.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to Truckin' On. I'm your host, Ward Richmond. I really appreciate you tuning in today, and I hope you enjoy the show. Pete Quinn, my brother, welcome to Truckin' On.
A dream come true. I'm on Truckin' On with Ward in his home.
That's
in
right.
your abode. What a cool way to get together. I haven't seen you in a while. Great to see you. You look outstanding.
You as well?
I'm big. I'm lifting too much. I gotta quit lifting so much.
You've got pythons on you.
I guess Susan does not want me this big. She doesn't think it's healthy. So we'll do something about it.
What do you curl?
I go reps. I do the same things I've been doing since I was 14 years old. A little bit different. I used to try to do as much weight as I could. Now I do the smaller weights, and I'll do the same 4 exercises. I'll do 3 circuits. I do a lot of push-ups. Read a book about a Navy SEAL. Remember him?
David
Goggins. And he said he thinks that's the purest form of exercise. So I started doing them a couple of years ago, and it's really maybe I'm 65 years old, and I feel like I'm as strong as I was when I was 25.
I was shocked when I read the recent article about you and wrapping up your Purdue football announcement career, and hearing that you're 65. I think of you in my head as being 55.
I think of myself in my head as being 55. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you, birthdays, the only birthday ever mattered to me was 21 because I could legally drink. 60 hit me. I thought, 60, that's real. But I feel good. Life is good, in a good place, always in a good place. But I don't feel 65, whatever that's supposed to feel like.
Yeah, I just turned 45, so we're exactly 20 years apart. And I don't feel 40. I mean, I guess I do. I love being 45, so it's good for me. But I hope I'm feeling the same way when I'm 65. And
the good news is it's a choice.
Yeah,
so you do the right things.
I really still feel like I'm 25 is what it is, and or 18 in my head. And I think it's always going to be that way. I don't see it changing too much. So what I like to do at the beginning of this is go back in time to when you to the years of 12 to 22, because I believe those were very formative years of anyone's life, and hear what happened to Pete Quinn to turn you in to the man that you've become today, and like how it kind of paved the way for your future.
Oh, I'd love to. It's my favorite topic.
I know, Pete Quinn.
Pete Quinn. It's a fascinating question for me because I think my answer is going to be a little bit different than what you may have heard. But when I was 12, 13 years old, I had an uncle, Ron Farrell, my mom's brother. I was a voracious reader my whole life. I started when I was a young kid. I started reading, do you remember the Hardy Boys?
Oh, yeah. I read the Hardy Boys.
Read every one of them probably 10 times, and they get me a couple of books, my mom and dad, for every Christmas. Read through those. Then I graduated to Zane Grey, went through my Western period. Then anything that Edgar Rice Burroughs ever wrote, Tarzan and John Carter on Mars, I read all those. And then I started reading, as I got a little bit older, serious stuff. And my uncle went to Notre Dame. He was the first All-American fencer at Notre Dame. And he bought me a book called Instant Replay by Jerry Kramer, who was a starting lineman for the Green Bay Packers, the Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr era, the 3 world champion era. And I read that book, and I wanted to be a football player. And I was a little tiny guy, and I decided I'm going to be a football player, started in 5th and 6th grade. My dad was my first coach. My dad was my best coach. And then when I was in high school, I'll never forget when I was a freshman, in one of our classes, we had to write our goals. And my goal was to play college football. And when we got and read our goals, everybody started laughing at me because when I was a freshman, I was 130 pounds. And so long story short, I was just passionate about it. And I found my first true love and just outworked everybody and ended up getting a scholarship to Purdue. And when I went to my coach, my high school coach, to tell him I was having a hard time deciding where to go because I had several scholarship offers. At first, he didn't believe me. He didn't really believe I had those offers.
Really?
And he goes, well, what did they tell you exactly? And then once he realized I really did have these offers, he says, well, Pete, he goes, I know how much you love the sport. You should go to Division III because by the time you're a junior or senior, you'll get to some playing time. You'll never play at a Big Ten school. And that's all I needed. And I went to Purdue, and I don't know if it's a record or not. I know at one point I played more minutes of varsity football than anybody in the history of Purdue. And the reason I did was I started for 4 years, and you rarely take out the center because you don't like to mess with the quarterback snap.
Right.
So the center almost never comes out. So I started for 4 years, made all conference couple years, captained the team twice, had a really, really nice career at Purdue. And then the pro career didn't work out. And so then I didn't know what I was going to do.
Were you attempting to go pro?
I was. Everybody that plays college football wants to go pro.
Yeah.
Whether they say that or not. And I had a shot. I had a legitimate shot. I was undersized. I'm 6'1". Most of the linemen were 6'3" or taller.
What did you weigh when you were playing in college?
My freshman year, my first year I started, I only weighed 225.
Really?
And I was blocking 300-pound guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. By the time I was a senior, I'm about this size, 265.
Yeah.
So it was a great career. And then after my senior year, they didn't have combines back then. They had regional things. I had the second or third arthroscopic surgery ever done by anybody. The doctor that invented that surgery was in East Lansing. They took me up there, and they just had to clean out my knee, but it got infected. And I got down to 225. And so when I went to the combine, I was 6'1", 225 pounds. And there was a projection for the draft that year, and I was projected, that was before computers, so it was, magazines. I was projected to go between the third and the sixth rounds. And then when I went to that combine, I just dropped out. And I had a couple opportunities. A couple teams talked to me about free agency, but I got to be honest with you, I was kind of done. I got down to 225, kind of like that. And I'll never forget, I played football from 4th grade through college. I'll never forget one day I was taking a shower and something was weird. I couldn't, something's different. And then it hit me. Nothing hurt. I had no pain for the first time in forever.
That's great.
And I kind of like that feeling. So I thought about toying with picking up 40, 50 pounds and giving it a shot. But if I would have made, the Packers had a contract for me, $35,000. And I could make more than that just not playing football. So I ended up stopping.
Waiting tables.
Yeah, basically.
Maybe. That's great. Yeah, I was talking about it recently with someone. It's like when you're feeling good sometimes, you forget about the fact how nice that is. Because when you're in pain, you remember constantly. It's always nagging you and you're just dealing with it. But then when it goes away, sometimes you actually just forget that the pain's gone.
You get used to the pain.
Yeah, you get so used to the pain. That's good for the gratitude practice if you're having like a horrible day or something. Be like, well, at least like my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. Like when I was playing football, and you forget about, gosh, that ended my career during my freshman year. My shoulders, it was the worst.
I am very grateful.
I couldn't sleep at night. You just like lean over.
That's normal. I am abnormal. We had my last season was 1980, so that was 43 years ago. But our 25th reunion, we were sitting at a table just like this with about 8 of my teammates, and we came back for a game. My coach was there, Hall of Fame coach Jim Young, probably the greatest coach I ever knew. I think he was the greatest coach there ever was. But we were sitting around with Jim, and he looked at our quarterback. We had an All-American quarterback, good friend of mine named Mark Herman. He says, "Hey, Mark, how you doing physically?" Mark says, "Not great, coach. I got neck issues. I got this, I got that." Then the next guy said, "Yeah, I just had my hip replaced. I have to have knee surgery." Went around the table, and everybody had issues.
Yeah.
And I'm the last guy, and everybody's looking at me. I said, "I'm good. How, your hips, your neck, your shoulders? Yeah, all good." And everybody said, "Man, you're lucky." And Jim Young looked at me and goes, "Pete, I was thinking about what you just said about not having any injuries. And then I started thinking about when I coached you, and I don't recall you ever hitting anyone." So that was my key to staying healthy. I just avoided contact.
That's great. Did you play center in high school too?
Not until my senior year. I was always a defensive guy, and I wasn't recruited at all. going into my senior year. And I had another buddy, Tom Robleski, was being recruited by everybody. He ended up going to Notre Dame. He was another lineman, but he was the more prototype. He looked the part. I didn't really look the part. But then when the all-state teams came out for Indiana, I was the only guy in the state that made first team both offense and defense. And defense was my passion. But they needed a center my senior year, so I just went both ways. And that's what everybody wanted me for, was center. And I wasn't thrilled about it. But when I got to Purdue, it's exactly the position I would play if I had to do it all over again. It's totally different at that level. You're the quarterback of the line. You make all the audibles. The quarterback will audible out into another play. We had a very sophisticated offense, much like the NFL offenses today. I would have to make an audible to totally change the blocking scheme, and I had to do it instantaneously because the ball was about to be snapped. And so that was a cool challenge, and I was really good at it. But I started getting recruited, and I knew when they met me in person, that was going to go against me. So every recruiting trip, I went to Notre Dame, Indiana, Purdue. I wanted to stay close to home because my dad was my biggest fan. I wanted to make it easy on him to go to the games. And every recruiting trip I went, I wore a undershirt, a regular shirt, a sweatshirt, and a sweater. And I bought the biggest heeled cowboy boots I could find. And then I rolled up socks and put them in my boots. So when I was being recruited, they thought I was 6'4", 270, and I wasn't. And I'll never forget the first day of practice at Purdue when they were weighing us. They said, Pete Quinn, 6'1", 220 pounds. And Alex Agassi was the head coach then. Jim became my coach the next year. And Agassi turns around and goes, Pete Quinn from Cecina, which was my high school. I said, yes, sir. He goes, what happened, son? So they came out with the depth chart that next day, and I was 11th string center. Wow. We had 11 centers.
And then but after two-a-days, you were number one.
No, the first year I broke my arm. I was one of the first red shirts in the history of Purdue. I think I was like the second or third one because it was a new thing. And so I didn't play at all. And the next year I started the next three, and I thought I was done. And we played in a bowl game. We beat Tennessee in the Liberty Bowl, and I was captain of the team with Steve McKenzie and Keena Turner. Keena Turner ended up having an amazing career with the 49ers, both of them still very close friends. And I came home, went back to school. I had a couple classes to finish up, and I got a call from the head coach, Jim Young. He goes, yeah, I need to see you. So I went in there. I thought he just wanted to say goodbye. He goes, hey, we can get you a red shirt. You broke your arm your freshman year, right? I said, yes, sir. He goes, well, you can come back and play. I didn't know if I wanted to because I got invited to the Hula Bowl, the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And going to Hawaii was really, really cool. And but we talked about it, and he goes, if you come back, I think we can be really, really special. And we finished my junior 79 season 10-2 and 10th in the country. And the next year, we came out of the blocks ranked number 2 in the country, and we lost a couple of games that I'll remember forever that we shouldn't have lost. We had a good year. We were 9-2-1, I think, my senior year, finished 13th in the country. But he convinced me to come back, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
We had a great year.
You captained it both your like normal senior year plus your redshirt senior year.
Yeah, I was at the time that was a big deal. Nobody was a 2-time captain. The next 2-time captain of Purdue is Mike Allstott.
Yeah.
So that was a long time later.
It's amazing. And so tell me the story about how you got the nickname Elvis.
I'm a huge Elvis fan, always have been. And I was a singer and still am, but I was always singing and casually. I wasn't a band like you are or anything, but I was always singing and just loved to sing. And people just started calling me Elvis. I think a few of my teammates think that was my real name. But it was kind of cool to do that. And for an example, my last year, we played Missouri in the Liberty Bowl, and they had a big luncheon. And like 3,000-4,000 people at this luncheon during the bowl week. And they had a singer as entertainment. And this is my 5th year, so everybody on the team knows me and knows I sing all the time. And she has a new album that came out called Vanilla Ice Cream, I think was the name of the album. And she was a talented singer, and the band was great. And when she got done singing, she said, now we're going to have somebody from Missouri and somebody from Purdue come up and entertain us. immediately everybody on my team knew it was me. They didn't say anything to me, but I knew it'd be me. So first the kid from Missouri came up, and he did a Eddie Murphy routine, the X-rated version. I mean, there's women and children in the audience. It did not go over well. And so then I came up on stage. She had left the stage, this lady, because she got offended. And then I got up on stage and I said, "You guys know The Devil Went Down to Georgia?" I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Play that." And I had rewritten the words. So instead of "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," I said, "Devil went down to Memphis. He was looking for a soul to steal. He's going to buy his way behind. He's willing to make a deal. When he come across this young man throwing a football and throwing it hot, Devil jumped down the practice field and said, 'Boy, let me tell you what, my name's Mark Herman.'" I went through the whole thing. It sounded like we rehearsed for months. I mean, it went over really well.
When did you write all these lyrics? And
I did that all the time.
You know that this was coming, or you just already had the lyrics down?
Oh, I got them down.
Yeah.
I got a real
Obviously,
weird memory.
I mean, you still remember them, yeah.
Oh, Milton the Monster cartoon when I was 8, I know all the song to that.
So you've rewritten lyrics to songs. Have you ever written your own songs?
No. Just I did it for fun.
I feel like sitting by the beach now that you're in Florida, you need to just get a guitar and write your own songs.
We're going to talk off air about that, but I got to get you to Naples.
Yeah.
I really need to get you down there.
I want to get down there.
But we, this lady that was singing got back up on stage after I sung. She goes, "Do you know any Elvis?" And all my teammates started yelling. And
they all call you Elvis.
And they all call me Elvis. I said, "I know everything Elvis." So her and I did a couple songs together, and the next morning in the newspaper, it said Pete Quinn, produced Pete Quinn and Sybil Shepherd entertain at the luncheon. It was Sybil Shepherd before moonlighting.
Yeah.
And so wow, I was up on stage singing with Sybil.
That is great. Can you give me like a little taste of the Elvis? Because I've heard it before and it's fantastic.
There was a song I always did is called "Ain't That a Lovin' You a Baby" that hardly anybody ever heard about, but that was my signature. "Well, I could run around the world in an old boxcar, but never ever, baby, would you leave my heart. Ain't that a lovin' you a baby? Ain't that a lovin' you a baby? Ain't that a lovin' you a baby? Ain't that lovin' you so? Oh, 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 oh." Every one of my teammates knows that verbatim. They've heard it 1,000 times.
Thank you.
I'm not shy.
I know you're not. I met you when you joined Colliers, and you came over from Cushman and Wakefield. And I was cold calling logistics companies, believe it or not. And I called this one company, and they said Pete Quinn with Colliers, our guy. I'm like, who in the hell is Pete Quinn? I've never heard of this guy, because I knew like every 3PL basically who they were repped by. So, and I knew all the Colliers brokers. So I was like, who's this Pete Quinn guy? And that's right when you joined. And I just called you up and I said, "Hey, I just talked to so-and-so company and they told me that you're in charge. So I wanted to introduce myself." And that's how we met. And man, we became fast friends.
Two spirits, kindred spirits. I think you and I live life with passion, and we have the same belief systems, the same morals, and yeah, I'd love at first sight.
It was, and very thankful for our time that we got to work at Colliers together. And then you stopped being a broker and moved into heading our whole industrial platform, which was just awesome. So we got to work so closely together, and that was great. And I witnessed you, like right after we met, then we went to IWLA and they had karaoke there. And that's the first time I saw you do an Elvis song at karaoke. And even though I played in a band, like I feel like you 100% smoke me in the karaoke game. So yeah, I need to get to Naples and then we'll write a song together. And that's the next step.
We'll find a karaoke
process. So going back to, I guess let's maybe just touch on your Purdue. Let's stay on the football track, and then we'll go back to business. So then you, after you graduated, when did you start your radio gig with Purdue football? Is it radio? It's radio.
Yeah. We're on. We have really good listenership. We had some great teams. We had some really tough years too, but I got a call, and I had literally just started my own real estate brokerage company called Summit Realty Group with 3 IU guys. I'm a Purdue guy. IU and Purdue are like water and vinegar, but we got along. And Tom, one of my original partners, was a basketball player at IU and was starting forward on the last undefeated college basketball national champion in '76. And we started this little company, and it grew into a really, really nice company. Bill Arrett, Tom Frank, Tom Abernathy, and I. And then we sold it to Collier's. But literally, the week that I started that company, I got a call from Learfield Communications, and they said, "Hey, the color analyst for the Purdue Radio Network can't do it anymore. He's an AD, former coach Dale Samuels, one of my heroes. I'm a huge fan of Dale Samuels, All-American quarterback at Purdue, beat Notre Dame as a true freshman."
Yeah.
And they said, "Would you like to interview?" They said, "Well, okay, yeah." Never thought about it. Call up Susan, my wife will be 40 years, by the way, in April. Shout out to my wife, Susan. Susan,
Hey,
I love
Susan.
you very much. But I called my wife up and I said, "Susan," I said, "I just got a call from Learfield. They want me to interview." "Oh, that is so cool. You're going to do it?" I said, "You know what, babe? I have no experience. There's no reason for them to hire me. I doubt they hire me, but if they do, I'll just do it for 1 year so I can tell everybody it's on the radio." And here I am 32 years later still doing it, which freaks me out. I never thought I would do it for that long, but it was so fun. And even when there were bad years, like the first few seasons, Purdue struggled, didn't have a winning season. But my first year, they had a freshman named Mike Allstott, great all-pro for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just watching him, and guys like Jeff Scanina was a senior on that team. He ended up having a 16-year career in the NFL. Just watching the individual players, and it gave me an excuse to go to every game. And it was tough sometimes because you travel with the team on away games. And so it was a big, big commitment, but I think it was really, really good for my career. You know, people, when I went through my real estate career, they kind of remembered that, kind of like you're a bigger than life personality. You got a band, you got a podcast, you're out there. People remember that.
Yeah.
Well, they remembered the broadcasting.
Right.
So we had, I worked with 3 different play-by-play guys. All of them were fantastic. 2 of them are passed, but Tim Newton and I, he's the guy doing play-by-play now. We've been doing it. We've been together 30 years.
So you went to pretty much every Purdue football game for
every
the
one
last
of them.
30 years. Every one.
I played in. I didn't go to the Bob Greasy. Took Purdue to the Rose Bowl in 69, I believe, 68 or 69. Wasn't there. I was 10. But then the next 3 bowl games I played in, and then I broadcast every bowl game after that.
Wow.
So it's kind of incredible that I think before COVID, I couldn't broadcast the first couple games of COVID because I wasn't vaccinated, and so they wouldn't let me. Before that, I missed 3 games in 28 years, and that was for funerals. It was I couldn't go, but I never missed.
Yeah. That's amazing. Congratulations. Wait, is this year going to be your last season?
Yes.
Coming up. So
yes.
If everybody needs to go listen to Pete on his last season being the announcer for Purdue football.
I did that on purpose because I did not want anybody to think. I've been contemplating stopping for a while because Susan and I have a beautiful home in Naples now that we go to in the winter, in September and October, really nice months in Naples. And a year ago, I didn't have any grandchildren. Now my 4th is on the way. We'll be here in January. So my life changed.
Yeah.
So it was time. And I didn't want people to assume I'm left because I was mad that they hired the new coach is Ryan Walters. He's going to be unbelievably good. I didn't want him to think it had anything to do with anything other than the fact it was time for me to just move on.
Yeah. Go enjoy the spaciousness.
It'll be weird.
Freedom.
That first season, it'll be very, very weird for me. I've never seen Purdue in 32 years on TV.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always there.
Well, that's amazing. So when you got out of Purdue, and then did you get straight into commercial real estate?
No. I don't have very many regrets in life. The only regret I have is I wish I would have. Mm-hmm. Even though the experience I had when I got out of school, it was the end of the Jimmy Carter era, which tells you how old I am. And you won't know this because you weren't born yet, but it was rough. I mean, you talk about interest rates today, it was double digit interest rates. If you bought a car, it's like 14, 15% interest rate, and double-digit inflation and double-digit unemployment. And it was as bad as it's been for a long time. And I didn't know what I was going to do because I was going to play pro football. I did not have a plan B. And so I got out of school, went home, moved back in with my parents, started interviewing with jobs. And one day I got a call from some guy that his name was Barney McMahon. And he became one of my most important people in my life. I loved him like a father, but he ran a corrugated company. And he called me up and he goes, Pete, he goes, I have admired you. I went to my sons go to Purdue, and I've watched you play for 4 years, and I was an old offensive lineman. I watched you the whole game. I'd love you to come work for me. I said, and I thought it was a joke at first. I said, well, what would I be doing? He goes, well, you'd be selling boxes. And then I knew it was a joke. And I said, I dreamed since I was a little boy of selling boxes. Yeah. And then I realized he was being serious. So I interviewed, I took the job, worked for Barney for 5 years. And I was out with one of the older salesmen who was real old. He was probably 40. And he was talking about how tough it was to get his kids through college because of the expense. I thought, ooh, I don't want to be 40 and worrying about putting my kids through college. So I started thinking, what do I want to do? What do I want to be when I grow up? And I read an article in the Naples Business Journal, and it had an article about 5 guys, the top 5 commercial brokers in Indianapolis. I called all 5 of them up and asked to meet with them. 3 of them did, still remember them like it was yesterday. They told me about the industry, and there was a company, a developer called Eaton & Loth. And I interviewed everywhere, every real estate brokerage company I interviewed. And I went to Eaton & Loth, or I didn't even interview. I tried to get in there, but nobody had room. They gave me a shot. And I got into the business, and I knew the first week, that's what I was going to do the rest of my life.
How old were you?
Hated it. Probably 26, 27.
And you and Susan, when did you get together?
We started, that's a cool story too. My junior year at Purdue, we were playing Wisconsin at home and beating the crap out of them.
Yeah.
We're not doing that anymore. I think we've lost to them 16 years in a row now, but
they're pretty good.
Good program, but we were killing them. We were beating them so bad I scored, and I was a center and I scored a touchdown. So they took
That's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Was that your only touchdown?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's,
only touchdown.
I mean, I played O-line. I was a guard, and to score a touchdown as an offensive lineman was my dream.
It was a dream.
But it never happened for me,
it
unfortunately.
Did. And my buddy that I told you went to Notre Dame to play, about a week later, he sent me the South Bend newspaper. Notre Dame was ranked number 1 in the country and just won a big game. And he goes, only you could steal our headline. And it was a full-page picture of me holding up Pete Quinn's center of attention, and that was pretty cool.
That's great.
But what was even cooler...
You have that framed?
No, everything I had, all my pictures, it's all gone. It was in the basement of our house 30 years ago. We had some flooding, and when I opened up the trunk when we moved, it was mush.
Center of attention.
Center of attention.
That is amazing.
And apropos at the time. But they took the starters out, and 65,000 people in the stands, and I'd look around thinking about our party that night. And I look up and I saw this stunningly beautiful blonde. And I motioned her down, and she came to the sideline. And I said, hey, we're having a party, 629 Russell, you should come. She goes, okay. And I thought, she'll never show up. She showed up, and it was Susan. And so we started talking. I'm in love. I said, this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with after about an hour. And I found out, asked her 1,000 questions, found out she grew up in West Lafayette. She had 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Her dad did this. I knew everything. I ran out of questions. So finally I found out she was a junior, I was a junior. And then I asked her what her major was. She goes, well, I don't have a major. So, well, how can you be a junior and not have a major? She's a junior in high school. And I said, and I got up and got flustered. And very, very nice to meet you. Never saw her again. And then a year later, I'm back because I got the red shirt.
Yeah.
I'm walking on campus the first week of school, and I see her, and I sprint. Susan, do you remember me? I'm Pete Quinn. She goes, yeah, I remember. I said, are you here now? What I really meant to say, are you legal now? She goes, yeah, I'm a freshman. And so the first couple of years, we were just really good friends. Yeah. I didn't think I'd ever have a shot to ask her out on a date. Never asked her out, just hung out with her. And then one day we went out, and became more than a friendship.
40 years, you said?
It'll be 40 in April. I'm going to take her. Susan's an elite golfer. She's like a 9 handicap, 8-time club champion. Or she loves golf. She's passionate about it. So April 7th is our 40th. I'm taking her to the Masters for our anniversary.
Amazing. I love Susan as well. And
everybody loves Susan.
And I mean, I met Susan just basically when I met you because she comes with you to a lot of these conferences that we would attend together. And she's just an incredible person. So
off the charts. She's, I don't know many women that would allow their husband to do what I did for 32 years because that was a lot of weekends.
Yeah, it is.
Home games, she was always there, but away games, she didn't go to many.
Yeah.
Raising our kids.
So Susan did not like the idea of you getting into commercial real estate, probably.
She liked the idea until I got into it, and we starved for 2 years.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a tough beginning,
and especially in that kind of an economy.
Industry. Yeah.
And so I went from making a healthy salary, new car every year, great benefits, to nothing. Mm-hmm. And those first 2 years, I never had a moment of doubt. I knew this was what I was meant to be, and I knew that I was going to have success. But it's hard when she was a stay-at-home mom, and it was hard for her. It was real hard, and she would just like, get a real job, and she likes it now. She's very fine with the industry now, but those first couple of years were tough.
Yeah, they are. I had dinner with a guy last night, and he works, for a big corporation with a salary and all that. We were just talking about work, and he made a comment like, "Oh, you work commission only?" I guess like when you don't want to make money, you make money. Like thinking that working commission only means you're not going to make any money. And I was like, no, that is the opposite. It is the opposite. And the problem is that, I mean, a lot of folks, I think, are brainwashed by the fact that commission only means you're not going to make money and that these salaries are a lot of money. And, when you go, I mean, you're basically starting your own company when you go into commercial real estate at the end of the day. You're becoming an entrepreneur, and there is high levels of risk, but there's a pretty simple formula to follow, and it's be a good person and work your ass off. And then the thought of going to a job that's a salary where you're forced to be there and work certain hours, I mean, it's unfathomable to me. I've been 1099 since I was 23 years old, I think. And
yeah.
I couldn't do it myself. And maybe at this stage, at least.
Well, you're betting on yourself.
Yeah, you're betting on yourself, but the freedom that you have with that too, you can create your own destiny. You don't have to go, if you want to go work really hard, you can, and you can also. I know plenty of real estate brokers that still can live a very happy life, and you can perform at whatever level that you want to perform at. Right?
It's something that once you're in it, once you've tasted the success, you'll do it the rest of your life. And people ask me, I'm 65, when you're retired, and my standard answer is never. Why? I love what I do.
Me too.
Keeps me young, keeps me in the gym. And I do a lot, over my career, I've done a lot of sales training.
Yeah.
I did it for several different, I've probably given 300 presentations. But I always started with one slide. And it's a broker that's retired now. His name was Frank Cacavo. And Frank was a legend because he was one of the first guys that was consistently doing well over $1 million a year before anybody else was. And I asked him once, I said, tell me what's made you successful. He goes, well, I'll tell you what I tell the young brokers. Never lie. Know your market better than anybody else. If you don't know something, don't say you know it. And the fourth one was work half a day every single day. And these young brokers were really confused when he said that because he was always in early, he's always in late. And when they said, well, what do you mean half a day? He goes, pick any half you want, 6 to 6, 7 to 7, 8 to 8. And then when I became management and I got to see all the 700 brokers, I saw their numbers and I saw what they produced. And I was really curious. I tried to understand, why does somebody like Ward and these top producers, year in and year out, are top producers? What makes them different? And you all do it slightly differently, but the one thing you all have in common is you outwork everybody. And that's the secret to success, is just work real hard. And once you get that, then it's easy. Everything will come in place if you just outwork everybody. And that's why I tell these young people, I said, get in early, stay late, make time for family, but just outwork everybody. If somebody's getting in the office before you every day and staying later than you, they will eventually make more money than you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so then you kept working away, and then I know we've discussed this before, but one of your big first clients, do you want to talk about that story? Or you want to,
I think it's a good life lesson.
The Genco story?
Yeah, it's...
I think we have a lot of commercial real estate folks that listen to this podcast too, and especially young folks are listening to it. So hearing this story, it inspired me when I was like 38 or 40 years old or something, and like it's such a good story. So take it away.
You do it the right way, but I was doing okay because I was truly outworking everybody. I figured out very early in my career. I had 3 young kids at the time. I figured out whether I went to the office at 5 a.m. or 8 a.m, I still didn't get to see them in the morning. And I coached all my kids. I coached all their sports. So I would leave a lot at 3 o'clock, 3:30, but I'd get in at 5. And then I'd coach, and then I would work at night to catch up. But the lesson I learned, and I was just dumb luck, really, but I got a call one day from a young lady, and she said, hey, my boss needs 50,000 square feet of space, and they only need it for 6 months. Well, you know how our business works. That's not the kind of deal you want to work on. But I decided, well, a deal's a deal. So I started helping them. And then it eventually turned into 300,000 square feet deal, 3-foot deal, which back then was like $1 million today. That was huge. And they ended up doing it for 4 years. And it was this company out of Pittsburgh called Genco. And the chairman of Genco is one of the most brilliant men that I've ever known. His name is Herb Shear. Herb's still around. He's retired. They sold Genco. Genco doesn't exist anymore. But when I was doing that deal, it was their first, they kind of invented the software for returns for the retail industry.
Yeah.
And so it was their very first return center. They only had one facility in Genco at the time. And so this was for Kmart, I believe. And so we got that deal done. And the engineer I worked with was telling me, yeah, with this new technology, we're going to open up hundreds or dozens of these things. So I thought, well, I'm going to try to get that. And that's before brokers did national stuff.
Right.
But I thought, why can't I do this in Chicago? Why can't I do this in LA? So I called up Herb and we really got along, and the experience was a great one for both of us. I said, I'd like to talk to you about, handling all your real estate. I can do this in any market. And he asked me a couple of questions. And he goes, well, put together a proposal and fly out here and let's have that discussion. I worked for 3 days and nights putting together this. I know I have it somewhere, and I got to find it because I know how embarrassed I'll be now. Remember those big plastic binders? And
oh, yeah.
I mean, it looked like a grade school project, but I was so proud of it. And I had just started Summit Realty Group with my partners. We all had to write a $10,000 check. I think I had $10,003 in the bank. I had to borrow money from my dad to buy an airplane ticket to go to Pittsburgh. I go into their offices, and I sat down with him, and he introduced me to the guy he just hired as be president, Jerry Davis. And we literally opened the first page, and somebody comes in, Mr. Shear, they're here. He goes, Pete, I apologize. I got to go. I got to take this meeting, but you know what? Just leave that proposal behind. I'll look at it later. My heart just dropped. I just did something just totally outlandish, jumped on a plane, borrowed money to get there, and he's not even going to look at the proposal with me. And I got way down real quickly. Oh, no problem, Herb, and let me know when you get a chance to read it. And then he walks out the door. He goes, Jerry, tell him what we need. And he goes, Pete, we need 300,000 square feet in Seattle, 300,000 in Allentown, 300,000 in Atlanta. We got to be up and operational in 90 days. And that's when I started doing all their stuff, and it just boom, baby.
Yeah.
And so we handled their business forever and ever. And then when I went into management and they sold, then they don't exist anymore. But that was a big turning point. The life lesson was, don't be afraid to jump on a plane. Don't be afraid to take chances. And it worked out.
I feel like Genco is one of the first that sold for the $1 billion mark and of these family-owned 3PLs, and they sold for $1 billion to FedEx.
Yeah,
and that's such a great story. And I met Herb at a conference after he did this sell, and he's just the nicest guy. Of course, I name dropped you. That's how I got his attention.
Oh, he's a great man. I haven't talked to him in years. He used to go to IWLA, but I haven't seen him there lately. But big fan, and will always appreciate what Herb did for my career.
That's a great story. Okay, so then you went up to manage all of us at Colliers, the whole U.S. industrial platform, and then recently you've joined Sansone Development Group, and that's your new gig. So you're doing development deals, and we've come real close on a couple, but I know we're gonna get it done.
We'll get it done.
Plug for Sansone. These guys as developers. Well, first I email Pete, and he gets back to me immediately, and then brings Jeff Greenwald in from his team, and they can go look at deals and price them, and they're aggressive, and they were just a great team. And I'd never done any business with Sansone until you joined them, but it's just sounds like you found a perfect company for the
twilight of my career.
The twilight, yeah.
I think it was. I think there's something unbelievably perfect about it. Divine intervention. Jeff Greenwald went to work there 4 years ago, and it's owned by 4 Italian brothers who all look like movie stars.
They do.
And they have great families. The oldest brother has 10 kids, Jim. Doug has 8 kids. Nick is the guy I talk to the most. Nick's single and looks like he could be casting for some movie. But they've got this big, huge, beautiful family. And when Jeff said they'd really like you, because Jeff was working with a lot of our brokers, and because he said, who do I work with in this market? That's how you met him. And so I went to St. Louis to meet with them just to politely decline, because I had a lot of respect for him, but there was no way I was going to change careers at this stage of my career. Really, really liked working at Colliers. I had a bunch of buddies like you. Wasn't going to make that dramatic a change, but I walked in their boardroom, and 3 of the brothers were sitting there, and we sat down, and I looked to the right, and there's this great big giant American flag. They had Bible verses on their office walls. I looked to the left, and they've got a great big oil painting of their father, who founded the company in 1959. They revere him. They respect him. He just passed like 2-3 years ago, but worked till the last days of his life. I think he passed away at 92. And then over here, they got this giant statue of St. Joseph holding baby Jesus. I said, I could work for these guys. So they're an amazing company, and they are, we got almost 50 million square feet in the pipeline when not a lot's going on, but
wow.
7.5 million this year so far, actually developed with a bunch more behind it. So it's going well.
That's exciting. So cool. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
What I said earlier, I think that, and when I say that, everything happens for a reason. Where I'm at in life is beyond all my wildest dreams as far as family, friends. Everything in my life is really, really good. And so I'd be afraid to change anything, because I want to make sure I end up right where I'm at. I said I would have gone into real estate earlier, but I wouldn't want to have missed that chance to know the people I knew at Wabash Fiber Box, which was the name of the company. And Barney McMahon became such an important person in my life. The hardest thing I ever did in my life up to that point was tell him I was leaving. And of course, he handled it like a loving father would handle it. It was nothing, but he was a giant in the industry, bigger than life personality. He kind of reminded me of a John Wayne. And he was just, one of the last times Barney ended up going blind late in life. And I remember calling him up, and I found out, and I called him this couple of years after life. I said, Barney, how you doing? Or he goes, hey, son, how you doing? I said, doing great, Barney, but I understand that you're not doing so great. He goes, nah, I'm going blind. I said, Barney, I almost teared up. I said, Barney, I'm so sorry. And he goes, son, I've seen everything I need to see. I mean, it's just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have known him. So it happened for a reason. I think that got me in front of Barney, and that was worth 5 years of selling corrugated boxes.
No doubt. It's amazing. I told you before we started, I said, I have a question. I don't know if you can answer this, because I don't think you view things as failures at all. But if you had to comment on this question, let me know what you think. But if you need to identify the greatest failure, and let me know what that is, and then what positive thing did that trigger?
I don't know if I call it a failure, but I'm going to call it a regret. I told you earlier, I thought about getting back in the gym, gaining 40, 50 pounds, and giving the NFL a shot. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have done that, only because the first question people ask me when they see I was a 4-year starter and I was all conference, well, why didn't you play in the NFL? And I have to explain it. And I wish I would have just played a couple of years.
Yeah.
And just to say, I played for the Packers, which would have been really, really interesting because I became passionate about football, reading about the Green Bay Packers and Jerry Kramer's book, Instant Replay. And so if I had to do it over again, I'd probably give it a shot.
Yeah. And then what positive thing came from not doing that?
My life.
Yeah, your life.
My health.
Heck yeah.
There was a center, a great, great center from Iowa. We were the same age. He was the captain of Iowa. He's the captain of Purdue. I think he is a 4-year starter as well. We were about the same height, same weight. Great guy. His name was Jay Hilgenberg, and Jay had an outstanding career with the Chicago Bears. He's one of the Bruce brothers for the Bears when they went to the Super Bowl. First $1 million offensive lineman in the NFL. I hadn't seen Jay since college probably, but I heard, and I don't know if this is true, Jay, if you're watching this and it's not true, I apologize, but he had issues with his hips and his knees, and I don't have any of that. So, maybe the fact I didn't play was a blessing. Again, divine intervention.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, like all the concussions and all that you hear about now, not as bad, I don't think, for offensive linemen as like the special teams folks, but I don't know really.
I think concussions, the most dangerous sport in college is cheerleading as far as injuries are concerned. I think concussions I know they exist.
Yeah.
But like everything else, it's blown up by the media and money's involved. And I know a lot of guys, I know I had concussions.
Yeah.
But we just ignored them. We just took an aspirin.
I had 2 for sure where I was just, had no idea where I was.
The same here. Yeah,
1 in high school, 1 in college. Right on. So now I'm going to go to my quick hits so that you can drop some Pete Quinn knowledge. But what is your favorite, what's your morning ritual? That's my question.
I'm an early morning guy. My first job was with the box company, and I had to live in Terre Haute, Indiana for 6 months. There wasn't much to do. I had a buddy that was on, they played basketball every morning at the Y at 6 a.m. We lived an hour from the Y.
Yeah.
So I got used to getting up at 4. So I'm an early guy. I get in the gym 3-4 times a week. Routine doesn't vary very much, but I need to lift. If I don't, then I literally physically feel ill. So I work out.
You do cardio?
I do. Not as much as I should, and that's something I'm tweaking right now. But I do a lot of elliptical. I ride bikes. Susan and I ride bikes a lot, especially when we're in Florida. We're actually residents of Florida now. So we're in Naples.
The land of the free.
Yeah, it's a great lifestyle down there because we live in a golf community. So I wake up, check my emails, make sure that, because how our business is, you might have gotten an email or a text at 1 a.m. So I jump on that. Then I'll work a couple hours, kind of plan out my day. Then I'll go jump on the bike.
Yeah.
Do an hour bike ride. Then I'll come back, work a couple hours, and I'll go to the driving range, hit balls for 30 minutes. Everything's right there.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier down there. And in the winters, it's hard to do some of the stuff in Indy.
Yeah.
You have to do it inside. So I love the fact that we got this place in Naples now, and it fits my lifestyle really well.
That's amazing. What about your favorite hotel? Being the road warrior that you've been,
I have been my whole career. Before I was Collier's 10 years as national director of industrial. I was there for 8 or 9 years at C&W doing the same thing. So I go to a lot of conferences, IMC, IWLA, SIOR, anything with an acronym I've been to before. And then
you've been a board member of, it seems.
Yeah,
like.
I end up on the boards because I like leadership roles. But I've traveled a lot, and I'm kind of Jeff Greenwald. You mentioned Jeff from Sansone with me. Jeff is the biggest freaking hotel snob in the world. And we've been on trips together, and I'll book hotels for us, and he'll look at the hotel and, no, we're not going to go there. Mm-hmm. So I don't care. If it's got a bed, I stick with Marriott just for the points.
It's great. Bonvoy has a great program.
They do. That's what and so I'd say 90% of the time in a Marriott, I'm staying at a Marriott here, and it's beautiful. It's the Westin Galleria.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful hotel. But I've been to so many the business we're in with the conferences and the things you do, you get to experience some of the nicest hotels in the world.
Yeah.
I'm just as comfortable in a Comfort Inn.
I'm like Jeff. I've
a little bit of snob.
Yeah. I think it's my band days. I had to sleep on couches and in vans and stuff like that for so long that I just jumped to the opposite side of like, I want the nicest place. And that's
you're more like Jeff and Susan. Susan is, I wouldn't call her a hotel snob, but you mentioned she travels with me a lot. Has my whole career, but she picks her places.
She doesn't want to go to the Comfort Inn.
Bro. Well, she doesn't. She won't go to Detroit with me for a conference, but she'll go to Hawaii. And she'll go to the nice places. She'll go to Scottsdale when we'll be in Scottsdale together, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be there?
Yeah, I'll be there.
So she'll go to that, but she won't go to Detroit or someplace like that. But I don't care.
That's a Marriott too. We get points for it.
There you go.
Colliers is on the Marriott program now. So
nice.
I hit Titanium Elite this year. So
I've been Titanium for 15 years.
This is the first time I've done it.
Did you get the little metal card?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Concierge Key also this year. This is like the year that all of my travel has started to pay off. And it's amazing when when you're loyal to these companies, it makes
there's some benefits.
Oh yeah. Like Titanium Elite, you can check out at 4 p.m. I pay for basically all my family vacations using my points, and same with my airline miles for American. So it's pretty sweet.
It is.
If you're going to do, and I love traveling like you do too. I mean, that's why
I hate it.
Yeah.
I really do. I really hate it.
I don't believe that because you do it so much.
I hate flying. I'm terrified of flying.
I knew that.
And so even the flight out here, the people next to me,
I saw the Tahoe you pulled up in. I thought you might have driven here from Florida.
I wouldn't be shocked if I did. But flying I had a bad flight 30 years ago, and I've never shaken it. So if I could get anywhere without flying, I'd like traveling, but I don't like flying.
Yeah.
And I fly 50, 60, 70 times a year.
Yeah. Anyway, traveling when you're Titanium Elite with Marriott, it's a pleasure.
It is.
What about restaurant?
I'm a steak guy. Much to the chagrin of Susan, she'd like me to eat more fish, so we eat a lot of fish at home. But when I go out, I went to Javier's last night.
That's so good.
That was a good night.
I said that when I interviewed myself when staring this podcast.
Javier's was your favorite?
Was my favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
It's such a great vibe.
It'd be up there, but I like the really nice. I'll screw it up maybe, but I've been to a steak place, and you may have been there in Buckhead, outside of Atlanta. I think it's called Hal's Steakhouse.
I believe so.
That is the coolest restaurant I've ever been in by far. I mean,
there's cigar smoking in there, like much like.
But I like
Javier's.
that.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. Bring it on. I'm a big fan.
That place. If I'm in Atlanta, I'm going to eat there.
Yeah, that's a great spot.
My buddy Brendan Egan from Dermody.
Oh yeah,
he's the one that turned me on that place.
Yeah, he does dinners there whenever he's in Atlanta.
Yep.
And I like St. Elmo's. Is that right? In Indy, the one with the really spicy shrimp cocktail. That's a good Indianapolis spot.
If you're going to go to Indianapolis, that's what everybody will say. Go to St. Elmo's. I've always loved St. Elmo's. I like Ruth's Chris.
Yeah.
I like all the big steak chains.
Yeah. Yep. So you're an avid reader. What one book would you want people think people need to check out?
Well, I mentioned David Goggins' book. That inspired me.
Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me.
He just wrote a new one that I'm actually in the middle of right now.
I did not know that. I'll get that. But the one book, because people know I read, so they ask me, the one book I recommend to every American to read is John Adams. And I read that book when it first came out, maybe 20 years ago, and I thought I knew a lot about the founding of this country. And I read that book, and the book is written in a way, I think it's Michener that wrote it, is written in a way that it's correspondence mostly between his wife Abigail and her friends. That's where they're getting a lot of this information. But he was a voracious reader. He had thousands and thousands of books. And him and Thomas Jefferson, in my opinion, were the two most responsible for founding this country, and they were totally opposite. Jefferson spent every nickel he made, died deep in debt. John Adams died a wealthy man because he watched every nickel and every dime. But I read that book, and I always felt like I was a patriot. I always felt like I respected the founders of this country until I read that book, and I realized I didn't really understand it. So I started reading everything. I go in spurts. I read a great book. Like when I read Goggins, I read another 10 books about Navy SEALs because I found them fascinating. I think they're just better people than most of us. But I read Adams, and it changed. My love for this country was amplified, and I'm convinced that that when they say the great, what is it? What do you say that when you're born in America, American exceptionalism? I don't believe in that. I believe that there were some exceptional men that created 2 exceptional documents that gave individual rights and freedoms that allowed people to become great. And I'm very, very concerned about where we're at as a country right now because they're destroying both documents. And it's very, very frustrating for me to watch because they're dictating. I saw. Are we allowed to get political? Or
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no rules on trucking on.
Well, Biden. I saw a video of him when Joe Biden years ago said a president that rules with executive orders isn't a president; he's a dictator. And of course, he's written all these executive rules that just make no sense to me whatsoever. I think they're unconstitutional. And I fear for my children and grandchildren because we grew up in a country that if you worked hard and you had millions of examples of immigrants that came to this country that through sheer hard work ended up having these incredible lives. And even the poorest of the poor in this country have better lifestyles than 95% of the rest of the people in this world. And we're giving that away. And it's frustrating to me. And I really think we have to go back to the basics. And I think it should be required reading. Every young child in the United States of America should have to take a class on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And they don't even mention those things now.
I read this book called the Tao Te Ching. It was written 400 BC. It's like Chinese, kind of like Taoism or Zen master stuff. And they write about what great leaders of the government should be. And I think I'm going to go worst to best. And the worst is one that's hated. Then before that, it's one that's feared. Then before that, it's one that's loved. And the one at the top is the one that's such a great leader that nobody even thinks about them being the leader because they know the people are the ones that are patting themselves on the back for creating the great civilization that they live in, which is, I feel like is kind of what you're saying is like give the infrastructure to the people to be a democracy and make the country what it is.
It's give the power to the people.
Power to the people.
I have great faith in people in general. I think we've become in some ways a nation of sheep. People, if somebody from the government tells you to do something, they automatically do it. And despite all the evidence that shows it's wrong, they still do it.
Not these two people.
No.
We're freedom-seeking individuals, Pete Quinn.
But that's
that's it. And
most of the people I choose to be with, it's a big reason it's Sansone. Those guys think like I think. They're grateful for everything they have. They have strong beliefs. They're strong Christians. When they hire somebody, they will say, look, this is how we're wired, and this is the type of atmosphere. We don't care what your beliefs are. We're not going to judge you. We don't care if you're atheist, but you need to know this is how we are, and if that makes you uncomfortable, it's probably not the right space. Yeah. I think that's a wonderful way of doing it, and I don't care. I don't care what other people's beliefs are, but I have beliefs, and I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care anything about you other than you're another human being, so I respect you, but don't force your beliefs on me, and I'm not going to force my beliefs on you. I think that's very fair.
I agree 1,000%, and that's what it's about. So here's to that. Let's see what my next question is. What about a quote? I feel like you've got to have a quote on you.
There's a lot. I like quotes. I think they're very, very powerful, and there's thousands of them, and I use them a lot. But I think the one that is one of my favorite John Adams quotes was about the power and what happens with that power. He's probably the most quotable president. It's between him and Reagan, who the two most quotable presidents were. But Adams said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think no more in our history as a country does that make sense than it does right now. And we're given a small group of individuals absolute power, that's where the corruption really starts. And there's a lot of corruption, and I'm not both parties. It's not just one side or the other, and that's got to get cleaned up. We have got to start making people accountable for taking care of themselves instead of taking care of their constituents. And so I'd like to do more than I'm doing. I'm starting to get more outspoken about it. I'm sure I'm making enemies, but I don't hate you. You can hate me if you want, but I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah, it's just a good rule of thumb to not tell other people what to do. I like that. So let's see. If you had, or let's touch on this first. What song would you like to share today?
God, there's so many. For years and years and years, I used to tell people my all-time favorite song was Piano Man by Billy Joel. I just love that song. But
classic.
I love Willie Nelson. I love Elvis. I love Frank Sinatra. If I'm listening to music, it's usually one of those.
That's a good Mount Rushmore of music right there.
I could listen to just those three.
I love that you have all of those, though, like Billy Joel, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, Willie Nelson, just all awesome, but all different.
Very different, but I like all music. I can listen to opera. I can listen to symphony. I like jazz. There's really, even we're on a boat trip. We used to go with a big group of people down to a huge lake down in Kentucky-Tennessee border and get these giant 64-foot houseboats and just have, kids on spring break kind of weekends. And one day we were in a part of the lake and there's a bunch of boats around us and somebody was playing rap. There was who's the white rapper, Eminem.
Yeah.
And so Eminem was playing. I think I hate rap. They started playing his music, blaring it, and I thought, man, I'm into rap, and I loved it. But 4 hours later, I hated it again. So it was really good for about 4 hours.
Yeah, that's a lot to listen to Eminem for 4 hours straight on a boat. So you need to mix it up. That's great. What about a charity or cause that you're passionate about?
Well, there's two that I'm very passionate about. I'm on the board of, and these are. Thank you for asking that question. And I think it's something else that the Sansone brothers kind of liked about me. They liked that I was very involved. But the Central India Police Foundation, I'm on that board, and we raise money to take care of the families of police officers that were killed or injured in the line of duty. And I think that's incredibly important. They've been going through hell the last couple of years by people that have no idea what they're talking about. Do police make mistakes? Absolutely. We all do. But I know hundreds and hundreds of police officers. I know that they're good people. So I'm passionate about that. They need our support now. And then I got involved about 12 years ago with St. Mary's Child Center in Indianapolis. One of my buddies, Matt Cohote, from Becknell, Matt invited me to a luncheon for St. Mary's Child Center. I just thought it was a grade school. I didn't know it, but he is a buddy, so I went. And I heard their story. And what they do is they take kids in poverty. And when a kid grows up in poverty, by the time he gets to kindergarten, they are 1.5 to 2.5 years behind their middle-class peers. They get put in the back of the class. They're labeled the dumb kids. And as they progress through the grades, that gap widens. They drop out and they become part of the system. What we do at St. Mary's is we bring these kids in. It costs about $10,000 to put a kid into our school. We charge the families $5 a week. A lot of them don't even pay that. But we get these kids in our school, and by the time they get out of St. Mary's and they go into kindergarten, they're at the same level or even above. And their odds of graduating high school go up dramatically. And that makes a difference. And when I send out, like we have a raffle every year. I bought you a ticket last year. We bought 100 tickets, and I bought it for
send me an email
people.
This year. I'll buy myself one.
You'll like it. Great prizes, $15,000 first prize. And a bunch of there's 50 of them, but it's a raffle. We do 4 fundraisers a year. We raise a lot of money doing this. And to see these kids change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, it's unbelievable.
And it's that 1 year before kindergarten?
Two, hopefully.
Yeah.
But at least one. But 2, if we get them for 2, it almost guarantees they're going to have some success. Because these kids, when you and my kids got to kindergarten, studies have shown they've heard 2 to 3 million words. Most kids that grow up in poverty hear about 25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not fair.
No.
And so I think that's one of those, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life. I really believe in their mission. So I'm very passionate. That's probably my most passionate one.
Yeah. My son actually starts kindergarten this year, so I can really relate to
And knowing you, he
feeling.
probably reads already.
Yeah. He's very good at math. So no, I haven't gotten him reading yet.
Well,
he watches the iPad really well.
He's gonna be just fine. That's the biggest challenge for parents today.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't have that. Our kids
know.
didn't have that. And so our kids grew up playing outside.
Going outside. Yeah.
That's a challenge.
We, and it's something you have to be really conscious about. Like, hey, the screen time is now, and then you got to force them to turn it off. And it's like crack, man. They're addictive.
It is. I know it. I've seen it.
So, okay, we're about to wrap up, but if you had $100 million in a briefcase, what would you invest it in?
A lot of people would be happy, buddy. Everybody, not everybody, but that Powerball went over $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I thought, what would I do if I had that money? And I know exactly. I divided it by 6. And 6 of it goes to charity, 6 of it goes to my kids, 6 of it goes to my family beyond my children, 6 of it goes to my friends, and 6 of it goes to Susan. And then I keep a 6. Susan can spend anything she wants. I'm going to put mine in the bank.
Love it. And then what about vision board for this year? What's on it? What's the next thing? Your bucket list, vision board, anything you want to talk about?
I've got big goals. Sansone brought me in to bring in new business, so I'm passionate about doing that. I've had, it's a real tough market. With the interest rates, there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of companies are kind of putting the brakes on things because they want to see which way the winds are going to be blowing. So I really want to have success and bring in a lot of business for Sansone. It's going to be a weird year next year without the broadcasting for the first time in 32 years. A year ago, I had no grandchildren. Our fourth is due in January.
Wow.
Spend time with the grandchildren.
Are all your kids in Indy, or are they?
They are now.
They are. That's
Peter,
convenient.
Oh, it's within 15 minutes of us. And when we're in Naples, they come down a lot. We go back and forth, but they all live within 15 minutes of it. Peter graduated from Purdue with an industrial engineering degree, and he lived in Dallas for 4 or 5 years after college. He came home about 3 years ago. My daughter, Kristen, got an industrial engineer's move. And she got an industrial engineering degree, which we were very proud of because only 5% of engineering grads are women. She lived in Nashville for 3 years, which was fine. But then she lived in Ontario, California for 3 years, which was miserable.
That's tough.
She's home, and she just had her first baby in November, a little girl, and they named her Quinn. How cool is that? Quinn Combs. Name. And then
my neighbor has a daughter named Quinn.
That's cool.
There you go.
And then Hannah, I'm going to play golf with Quinn Buckner this summer, a male Quinn. IU guy. But then I'm playing golf with the voice of IU too, football and basketball, Don Fisher, I'm a huge fan of. Him and I are getting out together. He just celebrated his 50th year in the booth.
Wow.
But I reached out to him when I was retiring. And then my youngest, Hannah, graduated from Purdue and came home. So now they're all doing well. They all have great careers. They're all reproducing, which I think it's important, good people to reproduce, and they're all close. So we feel very blessed.
That's amazing. Thanks so much, P. Quinn. I love you, brother, and
love you too, man.
Seriously, it's whenever we get together, it always fills me with joy, and I'm motivated, ready to go. You always are there when I want to talk to someone on the phone at 5 a.m. I appreciate that.
I told Greenwald the same thing.
That's when we talk.
He was making fun of me for getting up so early, so I just call, when I need to talk to him, I just call Ward because I know he's up.
That's right. Where do people find you? If they want to track you down, and everybody needs to track down Pete and send him some development deals because, he needs to build the pipeline up for those great Sansone brothers.
In today's world, it's so easy. Just Google me.
Google him.
Just Pete Quinn Sansone. You'll find me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of good things are happening out there. It's going to be a good year.
Amazing, brother. Thank you. Thanks for being on another episode of Truckin' On.
I think this is just one of the many cool things you do. I think you got something to say and you're saying it. And I think it's cool as hell. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Bye.
need someone to help me find a brand new attitude. I need someone to lend me a little bit of latitude. I wish someone would tell me what the hell I'm supposed to do. Then the voice in my gut kicked me in the butt and said, I'm the only one you need to listen to. Then my soul told me I'm the only one to listen to. And I'm trucking on. And I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line. Another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. I tried to run away like a freight train with no track. I tried to escape like a convict leaving Alcatraz. I prayed every day for a cachet I could never have. My bad decisions catalyzed the best ideas I've ever had. Bad decisions catalyzed the best ideas I've ever had. And I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line. Another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on. Yeah. So much shame when I share my little lies. No one left to blame until I stare into these eyes. I'm gonna tell the truth to you till I break on through to the other side. Living like I'm gonna die is the only time I feel alive. Living like I'm gonna die is the only time I feel alive. And I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on.